Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Denny Smith. Today is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, and on behalf of many of the stockholders of TRX, Bill Holter and I decided to have another Q&A call with Steve Mullowney. Steve is the Chief Executive Officer of TRX Gold Corporation, and again, he has graciously set aside some time for us. We're going to make the most of that time we have with him. Now, many of you also know Bill Holter, one of the premier gold and silver brokers in the world today. I'm always pleased when he's able to join us on the call with Steve, and I've been looking forward to hearing the updates from Steve and Bill about TRX, and also from Bill about the gold markets. And of course, we all want to hear both of them as how the recent news is going to affect an investment in TRX Gold Corporation. Now, we got a little bit of a disclaimer here, and we always share it with you. Before we get to Steve and Bill in this discussion, please be aware that in our conversation today regarding TRX Gold Corporation, we're not giving anybody investment advice. That's not what we do. What we're trying to do is just provide a platform for a frank discussion with Steve about the company, the opportunities, the threats in the current economic and mining environments. But it's pretty important to remember that your investment decisions are your own, and those investment decisions need to be based on your own personal financial situation and the advice of your accounting and financial advisors. Well, Steve, thanks again for joining Bill and me. It's good to have you.
Yeah, look, I always look forward to talking to both yourself and Bill, Denny, and we'll talk about the company, but I also like talking about what's going on in the world around gold prices and things of that nature. So it's always an interesting topic.
That's perfect. And Bill, you always seem to be the Tabasco sauce at the family reunion, but I really do appreciate your thoughts and perspectives on things. So thanks for being a part of the call today.
My pleasure.
All right, Steve, let's begin by doing a quick review of 2024, especially the state of mining, the state of production, the state of exploratory operations at Buck Reef.
Yeah, so 2024 was it was a year in which we, upgraded the plant again. So we got that to 2,000 tons per day. That's now operating, and it's operating at design capacity. I think in December, we shut down some of the mills in order to refurbish them because there's 4 mills that are in operation. So they're now back online and the ore is going through them. So that went as planned, on time and on budget again, which is great. As you saw in our Q1 results, that has lowered the operating cost per ton. So Buck Reef now is a proven low-cost producer. I think processing costs are down around $12.50. Mining costs went down to around $4 and going lower per ton. Both are on a per ton basis, which is just great. We're a single mine asset, so sometimes we go through a lower grade profile. Went through that in the first quarter, going through that currently, and we need to get to the higher grade profile. And with those lower costs, you'll start to see the profit rise as a result. So despite all that, we still benefit from good gold prices. We still have record EBITDA, record revenue. All of that sort of stuff, even despite the lower grade profile that went through the mill. So all in all, it's going as expected. I would always love to have more capital to expand it more quickly and put more drill bits in the ground, but that will come over time as well.
Yeah, you're being very patient, as are many of our stockholders. But I want to approach something on STAMICO. We've had this arrangement with STAMICO since the beginning. And yet I'm not sure that in hindsight that was of any benefit whatsoever to stockholders or even the citizens of Tanzania. Can you bring us up to date on the situation with STAMICO and any continuing negotiations?
So, STAMICO, I would slightly, revise what you just said there, Denny. STAMICO vended in the property. So that is into the joint venture. Obviously, TRX in 2012 made a payment, and then that was vended in, so paid for the property. They have a 45% interest, which is now dilutable because we're into commercial production. Well, what I would say the benefits to Tanzanians are the fact that we're now in production. We have 700 people working on site, both our guys at Buck Reef as well as contractors. We pay a significant amount of royalties and taxes. To my knowledge, I think, and what I've been told in Tanzania is, we, in our first year of production, paid income tax. I don't think there's any mines in Tanzania, even larger ones, that ever paid income tax in their first couple of years of production. That's what I've been told. I can't prove that out, but I've been told that by by people. Look, STAMICO is government and is in the government and helps us manage permits and processes to get that in place. But to your point, I think there's a lot more benefit to having the ability in agreements to bring in more capital, to expand it, and to be benefit to our shareholders and benefit to the country and the local residents in and of itself. A win-win-win situation is what I call that. The Tanzanian government has several parties in front of it, including ourselves, attempting to, look at better agreements. We're one of those, and we, we'll continue to have dialogue and discussions and move that forward. I do believe that there is the opportunity to have a win-win-win situation here. I know I looked at Perseus releases a couple of days ago. They mentioned that they're looking for some revised terms in their framework agreement around NYSE-A, and we're looking for the same with regards to us.
I think from an outsider's, even though I'm a stockholder, from the outsider's perspective, I think it has been a very one-sided agreement, and you all at TRX in management and certainly in operations, the 700 employees, I think we've done everything we can do. We have done our part, and I'm looking forward to a new agreement, and I hope you're successful with that. That being said, Bill, I know you've got a couple questions for Steve. What you got?
Yeah, Steve, the mining shares peaked out back in 2011. I mean, on average, the average share is about half of what it was 12, 13 years ago. It does look like there's starting to become more action. You're seeing movement in the XAU and HUI, both up and down. Has not really broken out to the upside yet. Can you give us an overview on the industry itself, what you're expecting, and also TRX within the industry? When do you think it's all going to wake up?
This is a question that's posed, it'll be posed to yourself too, Bill, in the gold space, posed to me. And, when I look at it, and there was a theory that was given to me a couple of weeks ago by an analyst, and I kind of, reflected on it, and they said, look, gold prices are up. There's no doubt that gold prices are up. But are gold prices up significantly more than inflation? Maybe not. Right, so the key is gold price, outperforming inflation, and thus, if it was, or significantly outperforming inflation, then you probably would get that reflected in the equities, because the equities also have inflation built into their cost, and we don't see it. We're a low cost producer, but other gold miners will see it in their operating costs, particularly around fuel and things of that nature. So that was one theory that was posed to me, is you need to really outperform on the inflationary basis in order for the equities to catch up. I think there's an element of that in there. I also think there's still the element of some companies just haven't performed or created a lot of value, and so there's still some scare around the industry, around some of the ones that haven't performed and give everybody else a bad rap. So I think we still run into that. There is still, given all the geopolitical risks that's going on, if you're a small miner in foreign jurisdictions, I still think you still get a discount for that. And I certainly see that in other equities as well. And then for us, I think we need to, as I mentioned, getting through lower grade spots and things like that. America cares about growth. Growth in a lower grade patch is a little bit on hold because you got to grind through it, and you got to go through the other side, and then you got to prove out that you have that growth. So I would say for us, we're a little bit on, given the lower grade profile, a little bit on pause, but people should see that as an opportunity because, the average grade of deposit is 1.8 grams a ton. We aren't going to process what we process in Q1 forever, right? So it's going to get higher. And so you got to grind through and get it there. So I think we need to show that we have a growth profile both on the production side, but more importantly on the financial metrics, revenue and EBITDA. Those are important in cash flow. So I think Yeah, you're right that the equities peaked in 2011. That was on the height that gold prices were going to probably significantly outperform inflation for a long period of time. But have they? I think that's I pose that to you too. Yeah, it's at $2,700 an ounce, and I think it's going to go a lot higher eventually. When people pile into gold like they have with Bitcoin, I think everything will come along at that point.
Steve, I never thought I'd say this, but when you get up to the 20,000 foot level and look down on Tanzania, it's a place I want to invest. But it looks to me like the World Bank and the IMF are actually helping to hold the country accountable to investments from the Western world. Have I misread Tanzania? I really think that World Bank and IMF are helping to bring them up to Western standards.
Look, I would say we've had a good experience in Tanzania since I've joined. So even with Magufuli there in the beginning, which has had somewhat of a bad rap prior to me coming in. We've gotten our permits. We've been able to deal with the political landscape and build the asset and continually build the asset out. So I got nothing but positive stories to say about Tanzania. I think what you're referring to is there's been some lawsuit cases that have come against the government for things that happened in the 2016, 2018 period, particularly around retention licenses, and have gone through international courts. And the country has been held accountable for the changes in those rules. But what I would say is the country has lived up to it as well, admitted it, and now look upon that as an experience to make it more investable over time. That's where the international law-based system comes into play, and I think the World Bank and IMF help out the country in order to move it forward economically as well. So, I would say that they've kind of fessed up and have learned and are now moving forward under a more proactive investment environment. Like I don't see, when I see the risk profile, talk to people about risk, I don't see the same things they're talking about. But again, I'm a well-traveled individual that is used to dealing with these type of risk, and it's more about managing risk and having fair, open, and transparent communications that's important.
Steve, it's amazing how we as stockholders know. I get emails, I get text messages from fellow stockholders, and I'm going to boil down the main question into one for you. And it comes to protecting stockholder interests. There's this balancing act between debt and leverage and growth and dilution. And these last 3 years have been a true exercise in patience. I'd like your thoughts on where things might be in the next 3 years.
So when you're managing risk, you finance things a certain way, and your growth profile is determined a certain way as well. And so a lot of companies, when they start out, will put leverage onto an asset and build it out that way, and then they wouldn't have to issue capital on the share side of things. But you're ultimately, a lot of times, unless you're pretty sure that you're going to be successful and you have the right amount of debt capital, that's the other key, that may not be for the best interest of stockholders. So the way we've chosen is we've done this with equity thus far. It has been an exercise in patience because you don't get the amount of capital that you might want to do in order to put more money into extra drilling and things of that nature. But we haven't issued capital since then as well. But what I would say now is we have an enterprise that has significant EBITDA. It has significant revenues. It's proven out. It's much less risky to debt finance this asset today to grow it. So what I would see going forward is you will see some leverage in growth plans. And that's prudent because we've proven out that we can expand the asset on time, on budget. We can operate at a low cost. We understand the metallurgy, and we understand the risk profile of the asset. We now know that, so we're now comfortable financing it a different way in order to achieve growth. Now, I am ultimately believe that exploration is riskier, should be more done at a cash flow, but production going forward is not as risky and should be done more out of debt.
Thanks, Steve. Bill, you got another question for Steve?
Yeah, I do. And actually, it's almost exactly 4 years ago to the day. We watched maybe a dozen different junior miners explode in value, double, triple, quadruple in the same day, just like the meme stocks like GameStop. And obviously that illustrated that there was a significant short position in the market. And I've gotten tons of questions regarding shorts, naked shorts, etc. And of course, the cost to borrow on those names that exploded, the cost to borrow was much higher. So that was kind of a real tell that there was concentrated short positions. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was a very interesting time, and I think that was a learning experience. And I would say, Bill, there's been pockets of that happen since then as well. I think it happened about a year later as well, probably with some unwinding. It's a gray area because it's very hard to track. It's very hard to get a lot of intel on. And it's something that I've actually researched quite extensively. We've also have had firms looking at different positions between, what's in Canada and what's in the United States, because we are dual listed. The regulators, from my knowledge anyway, don't really talk to one another that well between Canada and the United States in around equities. So, my knowledge level says as well, it's illegal shorting is not illegal in certain countries and offshore jurisdictions. And so I believe what you're talking about is probably done offshore. But what's the extent of it? I don't know. We see it pop up every once in a while in what you just described, and there has to be a fundamental reason for that, particularly what happened 4 years ago. Can it happen again? Well, that happened when there was a change in administration. Remember, it was from Trump to Biden. We're now going from Biden to Trump. I have seen investment banks putting up very large transactions again. I have seen some, and it's very select, because when I go research that and look at it, I do see volume spiking in some of those stocks. I also see stocks going up 400 or 500% in that period as well. And so there are some of these sort of things starting to happen again. But ultimately, the way I view it is, if there's a large short position, which you can't, like I said, is very gray, you can't prove. Yeah, one of it's in the cost to borrow, but I think ultimately just build a business and it will overturn that over time. That ultimately is the number one thing is you have to build a business that people want to invest in. And then people won't be able to make money on the other side of it. But as long as it's a serial issue of capital, people will make money on the other side of it.
Go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say, just a follow-on comment. I guess it was a month back. I got probably 24 or more emails, phone calls regarding a shelf offering of 100 million shares, and everybody's thinking, oh no, TRX is going to dilute again. That originally was put into place so that you had shares that if the stock did that again in a day's time, you would be able to issue shares, 3, 4, 5 times what they were valued at the day before. That's and what was just this new shelf is just a replacement, correct?
Yeah, the new shelf. So we had a $100 million shelf, which we didn't issue upon. And so we're putting in place that shelf. Look, you need to be ready for anything that can happen in capital markets. And you also need to be ready for anything that can happen with your business. So look, it's absolutely prudent to have shelves in place. Normal companies do. And I think there's always this overreaction to shelves being put in place. I don't think management teams are put in place to misuse these things. If they misuse them, then shareholders such as yourself vote them out, right? That's right. The reality of the way the markets are set up. But I think that what you just described tailors into the first question, is if people believe that you're going to be a serial issuer of capital or not be a good issuer of capital, then they're going to short you. And they're going to be looking to profit off of that. So, look, I think every company should have prudent capital management. Prudent capital management is being able to access markets, right? Like it's the same as, being able to access bank lines, being able to access gold forward contracts. All of those things are prudent management of capital, and you should have the ability to access all levers when you feel that it's prudent and in the best interest of shareholders.
You're certainly well prepared. Hey, Steve, I read this week that, and I'm going to let you brag about this, because I saw this picture of Gaston Mujawasa-Huzi, one of the mine managers, getting this award from Buckreef from Mama Samia, the president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan. It's helpful for TRX. Is that helpful for us, or is that a political thing for Tanzania?
Look, it's helpful for us because it shows that what we're doing is getting noticed within the country by the highest of leadership, right? So everybody understands, like I mentioned, there's 700 jobs at Buckreef now. And so that's significant, and that's getting recognized. And they want it to be a much larger mine than that and be a contributor to the national economy. And so that sort of award is reflective of that. If we weren't doing what we're doing, then we wouldn't get an award from the highest of leadership. So obviously, there's no negative or downside to getting those type of rewards. It means that you're doing good things and it's getting recognized.
It's pretty cool. Bill, have you got another question, or you want me to go on?
Yeah, no, I got one. Steve, can you talk to us about what you expect the next 12-month production to be as far as ounces, and compare that to normal, normalized ounces? If we're low grading now, will we be high grading later in the year? What are your expectations? And do you see anything of real significance over the next, say, 12 months?
Yeah, so on your first question around ounces, as you know, we have a very experienced new COO, so I'm not going to put him on the spot yet. Right at this point in time, he needs to get through the technicals and get very comfortable with where we'd like to go. So what I've been stating is that it will be more than last year. Part of that is how quickly can you mine and get rid of the strip, get through the strip campaign and get to the higher grade ore. So he's reviewing that and going through that now. So once we get through that, I think we'll give you more information on that particular point. What do I see is I've been on record in saying the recovery rates are what is expected for the plant that has been built. That plant can get improvements in order to get those recovery rates up. With those improvements, I would expect an increase in throughput as well. So that is something that I would expect that we're knees deep into. I have flow sheets in front of me being costed out now. So at the appropriate time, we'll give updates on what that looks like and how it will be financed. I think my prior answer probably tells you how I think about the financing increases in production. And then we have Stamford Bridge, which is looking really, really good. So we got to get really in there and figure out what kind of mine plan can go into that section, as well as defining it up a lot more. It does need a lot more exploration into it in order to define it, but I think we're getting a good idea on the shapes of where that is and how to mine it and what the costs are. You would have seen our management information circular out in the last couple of days. You'll see a new board member coming online in that, who led one of the largest underground mining contractors, now retired, and John McVeigh, very good underground mining expert. Richard Boffey, new CEO, is a good underground mining expert. So I could kind of, Buckreef will go underground. I suspect Stamford Bridge will be a combination or predominantly underground. And so a lot of good things going on, actually. I think, I probably could do a better job in just saying, We've proven out we can be low cost. We've proven out there's massive exploration potential here and a lot of upside on the gold resources and probably better grade resources. And we've proven out that we can build production capacity. So there's a lot of growth to be had here, and I think we're getting really discounted for that. I think the 45.55 hangs us up a lot. Being in Tanzania hangs us up a lot, but we manage that risk profile. I'm perfectly comfortable and have nothing but good things to say about the country. Look, there's good things to come, but I think we all know we're in North America. It's what have you done for me lately, and what are you going to do for me tomorrow, not in a month's time, 6 months' time, or a year's time. Not a lot of patience in our markets, and it is what it is. But they are our markets. But there's got to be patience in the mining industry too, right? Like you can bust yourself by going too quickly and doing all kinds of cost overruns. It's more of a slow, steady grind up versus, I got a drug approved and now all of a sudden I got $1 billion in sales. It doesn't work like that in the mining industry. It doesn't work that way. Now, I got to get more drill bits in the ground, because the thing that can work is you can get a bonanza drill hole, which can change a lot of things, but you can't bank on it. It'd be good to be lucky, I guess.
Steve, one of the things I got to figure out about you boys is that, first of all, I think the enthusiasm and the morale must be terrific, because you're naming these things. Stamford Bridge, you didn't name that Holter Bridge. You named that after a soccer team. So my guess is that enthusiasm amongst the ranks must be pretty good. Am I misreading that?
You talk about, we're North America, so we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. I'm an NHL person, a hockey person, because I live in Canada. Americans love their baseball. But the rest of the world, they love football, a.k.a. soccer. And it's no different on site. The first trend was named after Liverpool Stadium, which is Anfield. And there's more Liverpool fans on site than any other team. And I actually named the second one Stamford Bridge because they wouldn't let me call it Old Trafford, which is Manchester United. So I had to find a neutral site, which is Chelsea. So
that's pretty good.
I didn't want to piss them off too much.
Well, anyway, it sounds like the enthusiasm, and I'm just going to call it morale. If you got 700 employees, you got 700 personal issues and problems and family issues and everything else. But it sounds to me like when they come to work, the morale must be pretty good.
Look, the morale is pretty good. Look, everybody, Tanzanians are no different than us here. Everybody likes to go to work and earn an honest day's wages and go back to their families with something. And be able to move forward. It's no different. And people are proud of it. And so they're proud of what they've done. I'm even look, I'd like a stock price to be higher. There's no doubt about that. And we get on here and talk about stock price and, okay, the markets aren't performing or things haven't gone exactly to a T to spring the stock price instantaneously. But when you go over there and you stand on top of the plant, you've created an asset that is producing cash flow that people are proud to go to work at. And collectively as shareholders and as a management team that, predominantly based here in North America, we've enabled that. We've enabled people to move forward, to have a better standard of living, to have better schools, to have better healthcare facilities in their region, and to go to work and the ability to earn a good, honest living. You see the trucks and the excavators in my background. Those are good, honest, hardworking people that just want the same thing we have. And we've enabled that as shareholders and as a management team to be able to do that. Would I like it reflected more in a stock price? Absolutely. But they're proud to go to work and produce gold.
Steve, I'm going to let you rest for just a minute because I want to get Bill's thoughts on the current precious metals markets. What do you think, Bill?
Actually, right now, there are several things that are happening. One, I'm not sure if you've followed it or not at all, but the exchange for physical market in London, the premiums have expanded just over the last 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a little longer, maybe 5 or 6 weeks. But those EFP premiums have expanded, and what that's doing is making it more expensive in London and less expensive on the COMEX. So what you're seeing is a natural arbitrage where you've got buyers on the COMEX taking delivery and delivering it in London. I think the latest I saw was I think it was 80 cents for silver, but you get much more than that, and you'll get a wholesale clean out of COMEX and a failure to deliver. The other thing, another couple things is you are definitely in the gold market, and Russia announced in silver, and I'll talk about that in a second. But in the gold market, you've got sovereign wealth funds, you've got foreign central banks, foreign sovereign treasuries that are and have been for at least the last 2 years stockpiling gold. And that is a function of the BRICS coming forward. Is, if you want to call it a vote, it's a vote against the dollar as the reserve currency. Frankly, these central banks and foreign sovereigns are fearful that they have such concentration of dollars in their or on their balance sheet. They're trying to lessen the exposure to the dollar, and the way they're doing that is, yes, they are offloading some dollars, but they're onloading gold as the other side of the seesaw. If the dollar collapses, gold goes higher, and it protects their balance sheets. Interestingly, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas that Russia announced that they would be buying not just gold, but they'd be buying other commodities, and they specifically said including silver. Now that excited me because I view and I have viewed silver as the fuse to the gold to gold detonating. I've always said I believe silver, because it's such a small market to gold, that silver would be taken out first. It would be the first fail to deliver, and then it would domino from there. I really don't think it matters how much silver Russia does buy, but if they do start buying it and buy it publicly, I think that's going to light the fuse, and you could see some really huge action in a really compressed time frame.
Thanks, Bill. Steve, have you got it?
Markets are always volatile. Hey, Bill, like you discussed that earlier with regards to stock prices and things of that nature, like 4 years ago. Like when markets turn, they turn. We even saw it in AI and NVIDIA the other day with the Chinese AI. It can be very volatile when it turns.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before I get to Steve and the annual meeting coming up, Bill, have you got any other questions for him?
Yeah, I got one last question. And this it seems that over the last 10 years, or maybe even longer, mergers and acquisitions have been pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
And what doesn't add up to me is that worldwide there's been very, very little in the way of exploration, finding large deposits. Isn't it logical that some of these big miners, say the Newmonts, the Barricks, since their portfolio of properties or ounces in the ground is naturally being depleted and shrinking, why aren't they out looking for juniors with good properties and just buy them out?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Bill. And look, I think there's a couple of factors there. Is properties are becoming more risky, both on the metallurgical side, some areas of geopolitical side. Look at what's going on in West Africa. And so there's an apprehension to be a little bit more gun shy around that until it's de-risked a little bit further. And so what you typically see is projects now going into construction or getting into production before they're taken out. So we've seen some pre-production properties get into that sort of arena, and as well as when they get into in the production profile, i.e., the risks are being moved to the side before majors or larger miners go in and take them out, which is, look, Buck Reef, we know the metallurgy. That's a major factor that, and we know where the gold is. It's de-risked from that perspective, and I've talked about that, and I don't think we get valued for that. It's almost like we've entered into the small producer landscape without anybody considering the blue sky upside and exploration results that we're putting out, and forgetting about all that potential growth that's there, right? So that's the frustrating part on my side. But I do think there's always in M&A personal issues. You know, people have jobs. People have probably don't see the vision. I think a couple things around M&A. You know, people look for the perfect valuation or the perfect partner or the perfect jurisdiction. It's life, man. It doesn't exist. And so you have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to say what's in the betterment of shareholders versus yourself. You have to be able to put to the side that you're probably not going to get the perfect transaction. But that's okay if it's in the betterment of all shareholders on both sides. And so you gotta get through that and figure that out. And so in that answer, you can guess that I look at M&A, and these are some of the issues that I see. So, you know, I think we like to grow as well. We got a skill set that we can, you know, build assets on time, on budget, and cheaply. That's a good skill set.
Absolutely.
Steve, have you got any announcements you'd like to make about the annual meeting that's coming up at the end of next month?
No, not, you know, I think we're fully disclosed into the market. We're fully disclosed here. Look, I think we will probably have announcements between now and then around a few things, but certainly, look, what I would say is we've proven ourselves as a low-cost producer that has significant blue sky potential through the drill bit that can expand its assets on the production profile. So we need to bring that all together and show the growth profile. And, you know, I'm pleased that shareholders have been patient with us. Would I like to see a better share price? Yes, you would like to see a better share price. Bill would like to see a better share price. There are other companies, too, that I follow that would like to see a better share price as well. So the key is we got to get through it, particularly low-grade profile in the stripping, and show the growth on the other side.
Well, the proxies are going out. I received one this morning or yesterday.
Yeah.
And just a heads up to all of you TRX shareholders, your proxies are in the mail or coming towards you. Well, Steve, thanks for your time today. I'm always so grateful for your graciousness. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
You know, no, thank you guys. Look, I, again, appreciate all shareholder support and look forward to continue to grow.
Yeah. And Mr. Holter down there in Texas, thanks, buddy. You're one of the good ones for sure.
Thanks.